Well, hello, hello, hello. This is Happy Valley Hobbies, and these are hobbies that make me happy. I made a slight change. I'm just going wonder how many people realize what that change is. Leave it down in the comments below if you are not here live. If you're here live, figure out what it is. All right, back to this. It looks like right now we have 0 people watching, so that's okay. Well, it's one of those things of last time we left off, we're doing making spacers for the locomotive. I think I might want to turn around and actually try washers first, but I had to buy said washers first. So basically what I'm going to do is turn around and start with actually working on the layout and actually start actually turning around and finishing up the wiring, and also start probably making or start putting scenery on it. Didn't really want to go that direction, but I don't have washers right now to turn around and actually do what I want to do. The reason why I'm thinking about hello there, Jerry. Thank you for coming in. The main reason why I'm decided to go with washers is because washers are a very specific thickness, whereas trying to make my own spacers and all that, I have not been able to be very consistent with them. True fact, Sparky, and thank you for coming in. Well, it also depends on the dryer. If you're actually willing just to hang them up and all that with a clothesline and all that, then that is definitely definitely cheaper than washers. But yeah, the thing is that also requires me to go to the hobby store, which I'm saying, yeah, I'm not sure. I would have to actually call them ahead, call the different hobby shops ahead, and that are around here, and say which ones have the washers I'm looking for. Basically 1/8 ID and 1/16 ID. There's a possibility that the local Fastenal might have the 16th ones, but they would, or the 1/8 ones, but not necessarily the 1/16. So until I get more and not only that, washers are a specific thickness. They're trying to make spacers. The spacing is very wide. Not real. I'm not able to make them very consistent, so I'm thinking about going that route. Not really. I'm trying not to spend stuff and all that, but it looks like I'm gonna have to start spending stuff. The layout almost got a first public viewing last Friday. Basically, what had the local NMRA group that I belong to had their thing, but I'm still not getting the timing right. So I got there about 10 minutes late, not realizing that it was an open forum. It's like like they were talking about a trip that mostly was for a trip that they're planning on too. They're planning on seeing George Sarios's layout. And it's one of those things of it'd be nice. it's one of those things that'd be nice to go, but at the same time, I'm unemployed, so I can't afford to. Um, and not only that, I would have to drive approximately an hour west to get on a bus to travel 3 hours east. So it's the same reason why they every year for Timonium, or not Timonium, the Big E for Amherst. That's why they have a they have a bus every year. But again, I got to travel basically an hour west to basically take a ride. That would be, I think, 3.5 hours east, and then reverse the process. And it's like just probably 2.5 hours, directly by myself. And hopefully, well, I was planning on being employed by now, but well, hello, Curly. Thank you for coming in. As I was explaining, I decided to work on the layout, get it all wired up, and then from there start adding the base coat. Oh, hello there, Wigwag, and thank you for coming in. Let me switch cameras. Oh, that's one thing I forgot to do. I forgot to make sure that the other camera worked. So we'll find out live if this camera is working properly. Yes, it is. It's slightly off. Slightly pointed downwards. That's okay. We can just move it that way. Yeah, I actually did wind up taking some pictures of the difference between the original quote narrow gauge and the new wider gauge. Let's see. Now let's take this out right here. And these are the spaces that I've made, and they're all different widths. Let's see if I can get something I can got from very narrow to very wide, and they are not very easy to get them all the same length. So that's why I decided to go with washers. And I'm going to send an article to the local NRA group, basically to let them know that I'm actually doing something with this broad gauge stuff. Not just talking about it. All right, put that over there. And one thing I'll eventually see about getting there out of the way. It's one of those things I'm going to see about going with LaBelle trucks. So I have to order LaBelle trucks also. Let's put this. That out of the way. This out of the way. Alright. Grab all the stuff out of the way so I can concentrate on the layout itself. So my plan is that this rail will be, or the rail towards the front will be the common rail, and have the far rail be separate. So let's see, this would be, all right. So these two are the ones that are closest. And then this one's closest. And I mean, I could theoretically wire this up so it all runs on a single power pack, but see about maybe getting this as a I'm trying to think, along with the dioramas that I have, doing my golden spike. See if that actually works. Of course, I really haven't talked to the AP coordinator with this yet, but eventually I'll get there. Now, this one's going to be a little annoying because both of these are the same two colors. All right, this is that's narrow gauge. Now, what I'm planning on. Oh, hello, Mad Train Reefer. Hello, hello, hello. And same thing with James from the Monday crew. Looks like I made my chat window a little bit too small because it's definitely through stuff a little quickly. So let's go that way. And Mystic, howdy, howdy. Hello, subscriber 121. Am I the 121 or 121st subscriber from you? Well, to say what I'm working on a HO W6 layout. Now, what is W6? That is a 6 foot wide gauge railroad. Wide gauge was I would have to say before the Civil War, wide gauge was there, but there were not many. There was no quote standard gauge at the time, and like the Great Locomotive Chase, that was done on a 5 foot gauge railroad. A lot of the southern ones were more 5 foot gauge. If I believe correctly, I think Texas had 5.5 foot gauge. Canada did not have an official gauge at that time, but they had an unofficial one. And the reason why I say unofficial is because it wasn't, put into law saying that, okay, this is what the gauge is. But they did put into law saying that, okay, we're only going to, for 5 foot and 6 inches, funding was only available for those. I mean, so you can go with a different gauge, but you wouldn't get the funding. So that's why it was sort of an unofficial gauge. if you look at pictures of, I can't think of the name of the bridge. There's a bridge in Niagara Falls that was done by the Erie, and the interesting thing is it had 3 gauges on it. The center gauge was the 4 foot 8.5 inches. Then one rail was set up for 6 foot, and the rail on the opposite side was for 5.5. So there's 4 rails, but none. All the rails are actually live rails. They're not even though it looks like it might be poorly designed guardrails. It's like, no, they were actually all different gauges. Oh, so you're new to the Y-Tube experience. Okay. Well, welcome to YouTube. Why are peeps blue? Well, the thing is that the blue people who are blue with a wrench, they're set up as moderators, and I'm taking a variation of what Anthony Dodds, the great train outsider, does. He makes a lot of people moderators. That makes it so you can turn around and actually it gives you a little bit more functionality. But I usually wait until I recognize somebody from other live streams and stuff like that, and then eventually, or if you're here for, you come for. I haven't actually given an actual, an actual how many times you have to be here before I make you a moderator. But if you keep on coming along, and I see in other live streams and all that, and I happen to realize that, oh, you're not blue. Why you're not blue yet? And then I'll turn around and make you blue also. Yours is a monkey wrench. I thought it was a spanner. Or would that be Sparky? Well, hopefully you don't feel blue, Sparky, but if you go on Anthony's channel and watch him and all that, he'll make you a knight of the rhomboid table. So hopefully that answers all those questions. All right. Now, okay, so these 3 on this side need to become 1. The thing is, I put all these feeders down, and I didn't quite think through exactly how far I'm going to do here. Because these 2 have to be together. Probably snag the Unfortunately, it looks like tonight I'm going to be going out of camera range, because the layout's definitely larger than the whole camera range. And the second camera I got, which is over in that direction, it's a bad angle to watch. So, or at least I think it's a bad angle. Let me switch over to the other camera. You can tell me if it's a better or worse angle. Yeah, you're right, Mystic. And the reason why I didn't go with seeing somebody for the first time and making him a moderator is that unfortunately there are bad actors that are out there. So is this a better view for seeing what I'm doing, or go back to the other? This this camera is also on a tripod, so I have a little bit more. But as you can see, the Mad Train Reefer, sometimes we do get a little silly around here. But the whole group sometimes is silly. So is this view good, bad, or indifferent? Your opinions are of value. Of course, in this view, you can actually see the small little clock I use to try to keep my time relatively relatively on time. Mad Train Reefer. My schedule is normally 6:45 to 7:45, mainly because Sidetrack Sunday they start at 8, and I decided to do this 15-minute offset so people can actually. All right, thank you, Mystic. I am not Sparky. Being unemployed and being, I think, I want to say 4.5 hours away. Probably not. Ooh, Amherst. I will be at Amherst. Amherst is only about a 2.5 hour drive from where I'm at, so I plan on being there. Hopefully I'll be employed by then. But yeah, Sidetracks. Who is Sidetrack Sunday tonight? Let's see. Today's the 22nd. I'm thinking it's Rainbow Bell. Yeah, that's what I thought. Ooh. Now who's going to be next week? Because that's one of the odd fifth Sundays. I'm thinking it's either the Train Freak or Humanity Junction. But actually, here's I was gonna say, Sparky. It's like I'm willing to bet that Rachel's going to be on, and she's a hoot. You can tell that the apple did not fall from the tree. So, but all right. Well, since I guess the ties look very good and all that, I'll stick with this particular camera view. It's sort of a rare camera view because I don't normally use this camera view. Okay, so go down here. Wire cutters, where are the wire cutters? Thing is, when I move the layout to bring it so I can show it off, I of course moved everything, and I forgot where I moved the stuff to. Now, there's that. Of course, I'm finding everything but the wire cutters. Oh, hello there, stale skilled modeling. That's one of the things I had to say. It's like, unfortunately, the way tagging works in chat, uh, the colon doesn't, the colon doesn't work. It sort of terminates whatever it is. So if you put the @1 colon, it turns around and just cuts it off. What I'm working on is I'm working on my layout, wiring it up. It's an HOW6 broad, 6 foot broad gauge layout, and I was showing it off. There it is. I planned on showing it off this Friday at the local NMRA group, but brought it there and not realizing that that it was not didn't plan it very well, and plus I didn't realize that all right, got that. Let's see. This is going to be the challenging part. Yeah. Trying to splice it midway. Trying to take the insulation off midpoint, which is a challenge. As I say, with all the years of playing with wire and all that, haven't figured that particular piece out. Let's see. Let's see if we can. All right, we'll take that off. Let's see if we can move. Yes, there's enough there. I can turn around and move the insulation up. Uh, 6 foot gauge. Yeah, India is actually 5.5 feet. 6 foot gauge was real. It was started by the Erie Railroad, or the New York and Erie Western, or whatever the Erie was originally called. And then they sort of it was a gauge that went from New York City all the way past Buffalo into Canada, and also up to they sort of I can't think of where. Corning, I think it was sort of like a hub out of Binghamton, New York, because they also had my first railroad that I became a fan of was the Delaware and Hudson, and if you look up information on the Great Erie War, it was a war between the Erie Railroad and the Albany and Susquehanna, which were both 6 foot gauge, and it was a whole bunch of shenanigans of trying to legally force the Albany and Susquehanna into being underneath being underneath the Erie, and basically the ones who actually owned the Albany and Susquehanna basically said no, and they tried to take it by force. Not many people realize that in the 18th century, a lot of companies, they operated pretty much almost like a that they operated like their own countries at times. And from what I understand, they had to bring in the National Guard. I forgot which, but yeah, if you do another rabbit hole to go down to is the Erie War, and from there you could probably figure out all the different other. I want to say it wound up being similar to how the 2-foot there was like the 2-foot gauge network that was up in Maine. There was a 6-foot gauge, setup that was sort of between the borders of New York State and Pennsylvania, and the reason why, from my understanding, the reason why all the broad gauge railroads kept on or were destroyed in the narrow gauge. A lot of narrow gauge railroads, stay together because it's a lot easier to take a broad gauge railroad and make it narrow gauge than the other direction around. Because when you got narrow gauge, there's a good chance you have to actually widen tunnels, make the bridges bigger and heavier, and all the other stuff. Whereas, like here, this right here is the quote standard gauge. All they did was just add an extra rail, and then when everything was converted over to standard gauge, they just took out the other rail. But that's the reason. But the thing is, since they had a wider loading gauge, that's why some of the former 6-foot gauge lines they can have oversized stuff on their stuff to this day, so they can turn around and that's one of the things that the GE in Schenectady still uses. That's why they're still there, is because they can still use they can still transport their big, huge steam turbines on that line because they have the extra width and height. And also these former lines are also very better. Very better. They can handle. They could wind up handling the different stuff that's over width or over height, because the loading gauge was also a lot larger. So that legacy is still there. All right, got that there, got that there. Yeah, it's 6-foot gauge was I think the widest. I think there is a place that had 8-foot gauge, but I have a feeling that was more eastern. Do I know of any 6-foot gauge railroad equipment? I honestly don't know, because the information I found out is that the broad gauge sort of disappeared after the 1870s, You don't. I haven't been able to find out an actual uh, date in the U.S. when the last one ran. Uh, I did find a 5'6". There was there's a specific Canadian portage railroad that was still using uh, that was the last one for the 5'6". And I can't think of the name of I can't quite think of the railroad. It was, if I remember correctly, I want to say near Quebec and Montreal. There's like a section there where it was they still haven't perfected the canals on the St. Lawrence, and this particular railroad lasted a pretty good length of time. Where there are some pictures of it. I know the Vernell gauge over in England, that was 7 foot and a quarter inch. Well, hello, Daryl. Thank you for coming in. But I have found on Discord that there is a gentleman that's doing Lehigh Valley in the 6 foot gauge, and he's doing what I'm doing, is taking an HO scale mechanism and widening them. Can't think of his name off the top of my head, but I am seeing for people who are in the NMRA. The last time I went to Amherst, I wound up talking to Sparky. Or not Sparky. Is it Sparky? Who's the one that's an NMRA X that does that's usually in the Helix? It's not Sparky. I'm blanking my name. I'm blanking on that one. But he says, if I probably should. It's like, hey, start a channel on the Discord through it. But it's like, at the time I wasn't this far along. I hadn't started the layout yet. I nowhere near getting this to work. This actually went to better a lot easier than I had thought, but it also isn't fully working yet. My original plan was to use this one as the experiment, but unfortunately, there's the wheels for it, but the main driving axle measures out to 1/4 inch. However, as you can see here, I think you can see here, there's the axle is not straight across 1/8, so I had to abandon that, and I'll eventually come back to this and see about maybe reaming out the driver hole so it accept 1/8, and then I'll go that direction. But I decided to put that off for now. This is one that if it winds up being successful, I got to do a lot of fixing. It came in a parts bin and all that, so that's why I wanted to use that as a the experimental one. But then it's like, oh crap, I can't use that. And then when I took the wheels off of this style, I have a whole bunch of these. I wind up replacing the rubber band. Let's see. Usually the driver has a rubber band on the rear, so I pull that off, and that's why I knew it was straight through across, so I could turn around and experiment on one of these. This is taking a lot more thought than well, actually, it's not. Well, I don't think it's as. I mean, right now, the most challenging that I have right now is regaging equipment. The track is relatively easy, mainly because it's like if you basically the standard gauge. You want there's they have gauges on there so you can making sure everything is all correct and all that. For the 6-foot gauge, of course now I can't find it. I made basically took the scale ruler and made some took some tongue depressors and made 6-foot gauges on them. So all I had to do was just plunk them down there and be that for the same gauge. Technically, there's no NMRA gauge for any broad gauge at this point. Technically, someone could do 5-foot gauge, but I want to say the tolerance, because of the scale tolerance and all that, you can probably get away with. That's why they make if they do the Mantua General or the Texas or whatever for the Great Locomotive Chase, that was done on 5-foot gauge railroad, but they use standard gauge because it's only about 2.5 inches off. Daryl, they started using 6-foot gauge with the Erie and New York railroad. That went from New York City to I think Erie, New York. I would assume Erie, New York, and then after that, they started having more and more railroads. Like the Erie Lackawanna, the Albany and Susquehanna. The ones I could think of off the top of my mind. There was a lot of smaller branch lines that were 6-foot. But there was I would say, just like how the Maine had the 2-footers sort of network, there was a network 6-foot gauge, basically, I want to say the New York, Pennsylvania border area. Well, the question is, Mystic, how many people here are sane? That's what my usual question is. All right, let's stop fiddling with this and put this aside. All right, this one. All right, now this one goes with this. Now, I'm not quite sure if I want to, well, it depends on how far along I am, but I might be bringing, there is the possibility I might bring this to the Great Train Extravaganza in Albany, which is the first weekend of, first weekend of December. Or I think it might be the second one this year, because be way too close to Thanksgiving. But one of the interesting things is this gauntlet switch. Yeah, you can see it. This gauntlet switch from here to here. I actually wound up using a Fast Tracks fax tracks setup, and instead of closing basically instead of closing the rails, I just kept them going straight. So this narrow section here is actually standard gauge. And so I can put a gauge on there. It's just basically happened to go that way. Wasn't oh my god, I have to have it that way, but that's how it just worked out. But with the gauges that I made out of popsicle sticks, it was a little on the challenging side to get this a little bit more straighter. So I'm not quite sure how well the gauge is in this area. Also, I'm using a selector plate to go between all three of them. Basically to I'm still not confident I'm building switches. And right now I don't have a 6-foot gauge switch or template for this. If I wind up being into a different moving into a different apartment where I can actually set up something that's a little bit larger than this 6-foot by 1-foot layout, I would actually see about actually finding out how much how much would a probably a number 4 6-foot HO scale 6-foot gauge template would cost. I've heard they're around I've heard that they're around approximately $300 going that way. But right now it's $300 I don't have. But yeah, if I wind up having a place where I can have a much larger layout, I will turn around and actually go for an actual fast tracks jig of that particular size, and maybe more people would be let's see, 44, 28, 50. Interesting. I'm leaving that one alone. But all right. Well, I don't know if that will work this direction because it's a lot of. That is a lot of insulation to move. And of course, it also would require me to actually put it on there. Yes, it moves. It moves back, but it does move. All right. So we got that there. We'll wrap this around here. All right. Cool. Cut that off. Now, I would assume with Rachel being on Ray's channel tonight, there's going to be more than the normal shenanigans. course, when I started, it wasn't that bad. The apartment wasn't that bad, but now for some reason it's starting to feel a little warm in here. All right, that gets that done. And it is technically long enough to connect to this. That might require another splice into there, and then go into the wire that's all the way down there. It's connected to this. I would have to say that I would wind up eventually putting the controls down over here. I can see that. Maybe if I flip it around and put the flag on it. Yeah, the controller is going to go right about there. Wait a second, did the camera freeze? No, the camera didn't freeze. So I got that. That's way from the camera, so I can barely see it. Alright, put that away. Well, I guess this is about what I'm getting done tonight. I was hoping to be slightly ahead of this, to start putting paint on here because, well, paint drying is not what you want to call the most funniest thing. Also, unfortunately, the lights that I have, they're very small lights, so that's why there's not that much bright area. However, the lights that I do have that would brighten up the whole place a lot much more and all that, unfortunately interferes with the cameras. So that's why I normally use the camera that's up here, because that's where all the light is. All right. Oh, good night there. All right. Passive Oligon. All right. Well, it's probably a good time to start. All right. Back to here. All right. So, from my understanding, it's going to be Ray's night tonight, and probably, from what I understand, Rachel is going to be there promoting the Crab Fest. So it's one of those things of I would like to go, but being unemployed, well, I can't. Trying not to spending too much on stuff. And the good point is that Vermont Unemployment finally said, yes, you deserve unemployment. So I've gotten checks from it. So now I'm not going like, hey, does anyone, can I borrow money from people, or using turn around and using my new car fund as a I thank you, Mystic. My new car fund. When I'm basically saving up for a new car. However, it's like, I usually keep a vehicle for, a decade or so. So since I got a new car last year, by the time, theoretically, by the time I get to a point where I need a new vehicle, I'll have money for a new vehicle. So that's what the plan was. But then it's like I'm like, I got to pay rent. Ooh, there's enough in here for there was enough in the account for at least 3 months of rent and everything else. But now I need to, got to remember to take what I took out and put it back in. But apparently I've skipped over Steel Mill's question for regaging the locomotives. The locomotive style, if you're still here, I'm assuming you are, is that it's called, I'm blanking on Dixie. It's the actual model itself. It's an 00 gauge. Oh, cool, you're here. So I'm not, giving the explanation to the person that, still giving the explanation to the person that is asked the question. It's a 00 scale model of the Sierra number 3, which is in the Guinness Book of World Records as the most the locomotive in the most movies and TV shows. I forgot what the first one was, but I know it was the locomotive 131 in Back to the Future. It wasn't the one that went off the trestle. That was the scale model, but that's the most famous one I could think of at the time. I think it was also the TV show that it was most famous for was Petticoat Junction. And it was basically it was basically on every single one. I mean, or every single episode. A lot of the times it was reused film, but it's still considered, part of the film and all that. It's 00 gauge because they, basically motors at that time were a little bit too big. So in order to get the motor to, fit, which I believe is I could be wrong on this, but the number SR-71 is, yes, it is definitely a new rabbit hole. But it's one of those things of, right now I only know one other person that is doing 6-foot gauge. But the thing is, I think what had happened is that when Petticoat Junction was a big thing, there are Petticoat Junction train sets that are out there, which are technically not prototypical or for the show, because the show only had the locomotive and combined number 6. That's all the entire train was. But the model train set had more, and that's how the locomotives came about, and they were very popular in the late 60s and the 70s. It wasn't until they started HO scale started doing HO scale stuff only, Mantua and then Tyco. I think when Tyco left the model train industry, they didn't sell the molds to anybody, so it was never picked up again because it was an 00 scale. It wasn't HO. And the funny thing is, that's why if you take a picture of the prototype and the model looks awfully odd because it looks like it's narrow gauge. Because OO using HO scale track is narrow gauge. So that's why it's one of those things of that's why I'm looking for different OO scale American style locomotives, is because just like narrow gauge engines look smaller, broad gauge locomotives look bigger. So my idea is, if I can get this locomotive to work properly, is to turn around and get rid of I model 1876, the Centennial. So the thing is that I would have to turn around and take off the dynamo and put a correct size an HO scale headlamp on it, because electricity had no. I don't think the incandescent bulb had. I think it was around that time, or maybe a little bit too early for the electric light bulb, so it would still have to have the older style, the kerosene lamp. However, I could leave the single pump air pump on it, because by that time air brakes were starting to become required to be on trains and all that. So that's why you see some of the, sometimes you'll come across a picture that it still has the big, large cow catcher on it with the Lincoln pin, but there's an air hose coming off the side, because because air brakes were a thing. One of the interesting things is that the knuckle coupler was just being introduced, I think around 1876. So my idea is to, use knuckle couplers, but then turn around and actually cut a slot in it so it'd be backward compatible with the Lincoln pin. So that's another rabbit hole to go down to. It's like, figure out exactly when things happened. I'm going to play a little loose on stuff, because because I'm looking for more for interoperability and all that. It's a pretty neat history on that. The thing is, I haven't found out exactly when they stopped with the 6-foot gauge, when the last run of 6-foot gauge is. But I'm modeling June of 1876, sort of like just before the Centennial. Unlike 1976, usually they would build, the company would paint locomotives in red, white, and blue, and cars and cabooses, tanks, everything you could think of. Back there in the Centennial, it was more up to the crew. So the only thing that really got do I have anything that I can't make or have trouble with? I think you have to define that a little bit more, because yes, I've had things I can't make or have trouble with. But what specifically are you asking for? I'm assuming with the specific model railroad. Right now, the things I'm having trouble with is I'm able to re-gauge the locomotive, but it's the mechanism isn't working smoothly. I did turn around and tried to make spacers for them. Maybe that would help out and all that. However, I'm not able to make spacers consistently. So that's why I'm planning on doing washers, because washers are a very specific thickness, and if you need more, you just stack them on. But I don't have those, so I have to actually call the different hobby shops in the area and see which ones actually have washers that I could use. But it's one of those things of anything I can't make. I don't know if I honestly don't know if I haven't come across something I can't make. But I have come across it. There is a thing. There is a thing of, should I make this or is it commercially available? Because if it's commercially available, it's just easier to buy the thing. Ooh. Go off measurements or schematics or washers. Interesting. Well, I do. Thing is, I did buy from Micromart their 7x16 lathe. I haven't done anything with it yet. It's one of those things of, unfortunately, I have a carpeted floor, so it's one of those things of going like, you don't really want to. And I'm in a rental unit, so it's one of those things of, it's on a very nice Home Depot thing. It's all nicely set up and all that, but I haven't used it because of, don't want to get metal into the carpet. Although the owner is planning on replacing the carpet eventually, but he has not yet. So, but probably having a machining tools inside of a rental place is probably not the best thing. I would have to get back to you on that for the measurements, because I think I figured it out once, but I lost that piece. I misplaced that piece of paper. Yes, I could probably do that. But again, I'm unemployed, so can't go too nuts on stuff. Well, I would have to. I could tell you how what equations that I use to get the measurements. Basically, basically all I did was what did I do? I took what the size of standard gauge is, what it is in actual measurements, or millimeter. Go with millimeters, and also how much in millimeters a scale 6 foot are. Basically, subtract the standard gauge from 6 foot, and then split that in half because you need it in half, and then maybe add an extra 1/10 of a millimeter to that. Just to give it. You don't want it so tight that it won't move. You have to have some tolerance in there, and I think that's what I used for the measurements. Yeah, use of imperial. Well, I know Blondie Hacks on her channel. Depend. She uses imperial a lot, but every now and then she uses millimeter, especially if something just happens to have that. I'm trying to think now. This is like she uses the imperial finger of shame or something like that, and the Well, the interesting thing is that the reason why I went with the Micromart one is that I was looking at all the other ones, and I was surprised to find out that um, because the rotation was something like 1 in 2.5 or 2.7 or something like that per revolution, which made no sense to me. And then I found that, and I thought it was metric. But then when I did the metric conversion and all that, I said that didn't make any sense either. And then I forgot if I came across this or I realized it, is that it's actually each turn is 16 for every inch. So it's 1/16th per revolution. That's why it doesn't quite line up pneumatically. And that's why I think 2-rail O scale. No, S scale. It's 1 millimeter off of S scale. But yeah, it's one of those things. If I want to, start using the lathe more, because it was not cheap. But the reason why I went with that is because each revolution on the others, like your Harbor Freight, your Grizzly, insert lathe, it's 1/16th, which is more on its imperial fractional instead of imperial decimal. Micromark makes theirs imperial decimal. And which is true except for the one accessory. I bought the milling accessory. That's still 16, which I'm like, well, that's sort of pointless. Here you have a machine that's all imperial decimal, and then you got this one accessory that's imperial fractional. But yeah, it's I could be slightly off on this, but I think S scale or S gauge, it's 22 millimeter, and HO scale. All right. Well, actually, it's time to probably head off and go over to Ray's channel. But thank you for being here, everyone, including. I have an odd feeling that people have turned around and all right, you're very welcome. All right, now to head over to yeah, as I said in the beginning of the video, I changed something. I'm wondering if people actually realize what the change is. It's very minor, but just want to see who's paying attention. So, well, the way I look at it is that the world needs more love. So find your passion, add some silliness to it, and spread it around. Bye.